Forget the piles, turning and waiting. There's a simpler, faster way to build rich soil without traditional composting. Discover the lazy compost technique that feeds your garden directly while saving time, space and effort. Every gardener knows the promise of compost, black, crumbly gold that transforms any soil into a thriving ecosystem. But let's be honest, composting the traditional way is a chore. You haul kitchen scraps, measure carbon to nitrogen ratios, flip the pile every few weeks, and wait months for it to finish. I did it for years, faithfully turning my heap, battling the smell, and watching half the volume disappear into nothing. Then I stopped. I found something better, simpler, faster, and far more effective. I call it direct soil feeding. It skips the pile entirely and turns your garden bed into the compost factory. Since switching, my yields have gone up, my soil stays alive year-round, and I haven't lifted a pitchfork once. Compost piles lose energy, while in-soil composting keeps it where plants need it. Traditional composting, while effective, burns through organic matter too fast. Heat builds up as microbes feast on your waste, breaking it down rapidly, but most of that energy escapes as carbon dioxide and heat. When you finally spread the finished compost, much of the microbial life has already peaked and declined. When you compost directly in the soil, none of that energy is lost. Instead, you bury organic matter right where the microbial and fungal networks already live. The breakdown happens naturally, slowly and directly in the root zone. This means nutrients stay in place, microbes remain active, and moisture is conserved. It's a living, continuous system rather than a separate process. The beauty of this method is that it requires zero turning, zero waiting, and zero waste. Every banana peel, coffee ground, or vegetable scrap becomes instant fuel for soil life right beneath your plants. Here's how I replaced the traditional compost pile entirely. I began by designating a section of my vegetable garden as a feeding trench. I dug a narrow trench about 10 to 12 inches deep and a foot wide, running along the row where I planned to grow my next crop. Into that trench went all my kitchen scraps, banana peels, onion skins, eggshells, and leftover greens. To balance it, I added a few handfuls of dried leaves, shredded cardboard or straw, roughly a 4-to-1 ratio of greens to browns. That ratio keeps the balance between nitrogen and carbon, ensuring steady decomposition without odor. Once the trench was about half full, I watered it lightly, then covered everything with 4 to 6 inches of the original topsoil. Within a week, worms began moving in. Within a month, the trench had collapsed slightly, signaling that decomposition was underway. By the next planting season, that section was dark, loose, and teeming with life. This process isn't a one-time trick, it's a rotation. Each new season, I shift the feeding trench to a different part of the bed. Over time, I've built rich, fertile soil throughout my garden, without ever maintaining a separate compost pile. The biggest reason this method works so well is that it lets biology take the lead. When organic matter is buried directly in the soil, worms are drawn to it almost immediately. They chew through it, excreting nutrient-rich castings as they go. This worm activity loosens the soil, improves drainage, and aerates naturally. No tilling or turning required. Microbes thrive in the moist, oxygen-limited environment of the buried waste. Fungi colonize the organic matter and connect it to nearby roots through mycorrhizal networks. This underground cooperation transfers nutrients to plants in real time, something no traditional compost heap can do. If you want to accelerate this natural process, pour a microbial activator over the trench after burying the waste. A mix of 1 tablespoon of molasses in a gallon of non-chlorinated water works perfectly. It wakes up local bacteria and fungi instantly. Whether you're working with raised beds, containers, or a full backyard plot, this method scales effortlessly. In raised beds, just dig small holes or narrow channels between plant rows and bury your organic matter there. For containers, create a feeding pocket on one side of the pot and rotate where you bury scraps each month. If you have chickens or livestock, you can even use their bedding waste as feedstock. Just let it dry a bit, then bury it shallowly under mulch. The key is to keep the organic layer below the surface, where it stays moist and out of reach of pests. Some gardeners worry that direct composting might attract rodents, but that only happens when waste is left exposed. As long as your scraps are covered by at least 4 inches of soil or mulch, it stays odour-free and safe. I've used this system successfully in both clay-heavy and sandy soils. In clay, the organic matter breaks up compaction. In sandy beds, it increases water retention. Either way, the result is the same: soft, rich soil that gets better with every cycle. What really sold me on this method was the speed of visible improvement. With traditional compost, I waited months before I could spread a small batch over my beds. With direct feeding, I started seeing worm castings, fungal threads, and soft, crumbly soil within 3 weeks. My tomato roots began pushing deeper, and moisture retention doubled. Because everything decomposes in place, nutrients stay exactly where roots can access them. You're not moving compost from pile to bed, losing structure and life in the process. It's a closed-loop system. And since it's ongoing, you can feed your soil year-round. No waiting for finished compost. Even better, this method reduces your household waste stream instantly. Every kitchen scrap becomes a soil amendment instead of trash. It's regenerative gardening at its most practical level. Once you get into the rhythm, it's easy to design your garden layout around it. Alternate rows or sections as active feeding zones each season. Over 2 to 3 years, you'll have an entire garden bed network where organic matter cycles continuously underground. You can even combine this system with mulch layering for an even greater effect. After burying your scraps, cover the surface with a 2-inch layer of mulch. The top layer stays dry, the lower layer stays active, and the balance between oxygen and moisture remains perfect for decomposition. If you garden in a cooler region, try adding a layer of fresh manure in the lower part of the trench, about 10% by volume. The slight heat from decomposition keeps biological activity running even in cold months. Traditional composting isn't bad, it's just inefficient. You're doing all the heavy lifting that nature can handle on its own. Direct soil feeding is composting evolved. It saves time, conserves nutrients, and strengthens your garden's natural ecosystem without constant work. If you've been struggling with compost piles that take forever to break down, or beds that never seem to come alive, try this lazy method for just 1 season. You'll see firsthand why I'll never make compost again. The soil simply doesn't need me to. If you found this guide useful, make sure to subscribe to Botanical Bliss for more regenerative and no-work gardening methods that actually deliver results. And share this with another grower who's tired of waiting on compost piles, because sometimes doing less really does grow more.